Aloha mai kako. My name is Dr. Jamie Mahelani Miller, a co-founder of Ekolu Mea Nui, a nonprofit organization dedicated to the transformation of Hawaii's criminal legal system through Native Hawaiian cultural practices and values. We envision a pono or just legal system that heals and empowers individuals, ohana, and communities. Ekolu Mea Nui is a staunch advocate for justice reform in Hawaii. Did you know that Hawaii's criminal legal system is one of the fastest growing industries in our state? Nothing any state should be proud of or aspire to, especially during pandemic times such as these. In fact, since the 70s, followed by tough on crime policies, Hawaii's incarceration population grew 670%. No, Hawaii does not have more crime per capita than other states, but we do arrest, charge, and sentence more people per capita than others. Again, nothing to be proud of Hawaii. Did you also know that throughout the continuum of the criminal legal system, Native Hawaiians, the indigenous people of Hawaii, are overrepresented? There is a disproportionate population of Native Hawaiians in our jails and prisons. Although Native Hawaiians represent 20% of the general population, they account for 38% of this system. And no, Native Hawaiians do not commit more crimes than other ethnic groups in Hawaii. Another fact that we should not be proud of. Did you know that the Department of Public Safety spends over $265 million each year of taxpayer dollars and has provided a failing grade in recidivism? Hawaii's recidivism rate is between 40 and 66%. Once again, absolutely nothing to be proud of. So what are some of the solutions our state is working on? You guessed it, build another jail. Yes, some of our government leaders want to spend more taxpayer dollars for the creation of a new facility that they estimate to be between $433 million to $673 million. Yet the new facility won't solve for the overcrowding our jails and prisons have experienced for decades. All of these reasons and more have prompted Ekolu Mea Nui to stand behind and push for justice reform. The HCR 85 Task Force report given to the legislature in 2018 strongly recommends Hawaii move from a punitive state to a transformative or rehabilitative one so that everyone touched by this system can be successful and contribute positively to our society, making our communities safer. Next, you will hear other bills and legislation that are up and coming. These important topics will help us meet our mission to reform Hawaii. For too long, Hawaii has been a disappointment when it comes to our criminal legal system. Let's start to be proud of our decisions and implementation on how we treat every single person in our state. Yes, justice involved our people. They are our brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters. Ekolu Mea Nui is confident that we can do better together. Mahalo.
Aloha. My name is Jennifer Brown, and I'm an attorney and the Associate Director of the Hawaii Innocence Project. At the Hawaii Innocence Project, we investigate and represent clients who have been wrongfully convicted for a crime they did not commit. Many of our clients have had to serve years behind bars and years on parole with a criminal conviction hanging over their head. They know the difficulty of trying to start life over again, but unable to do so because they're unable to find work or find housing while their conviction looms over them. Regardless of someone's guilt or innocence, we believe in the importance of getting a second chance by expunging and sealing your criminal record. Today, I'm going to walk you through the process of getting an expungement and sealing your record here in Hawaii, so you can clear your record and get a second chance at a new start. Before I explain what types of offenses can be expunged, it is important to first explain what an expungement is. So, an expungement removes or clears non-convictions and or convictions from your record. In Hawaii, when you apply for an expungement, all eligible convictions and non-convictions are removed from your criminal record. All of them. So you don't need to submit multiple applications multiple times. You just submit one application and anything on your record that is eligible will be expunged. If approved, all eligible offenses will be removed from the state criminal database. Hawaii Criminal Justice Data Center, where you submit your expungement application, will also submit your expungement order to the FBI and remove your information from their database as well. The process takes 120 days or less to complete. Prior to COVID-19, this process was actually pretty quick, with many of our clients having their records expunged within just 1 month. However, due to COVID-19, the Hawaii Criminal Justice Data Center, which processes all adult expungements, is working with reduced staffing, which could delay the process. If you have a juvenile offense, however, that you would like to be removed from your record, you will need to contact the family court, as the Hawaii Criminal Justice Data Center does not work with juvenile records. Although knowing whether you qualify for an expungement can be a little complicated, applying for an expungement is actually quite easy. The Hawaii Criminal Justice Data Center in downtown Honolulu, near the Supreme Court, processes all expungement applications. To start the process, go to the HCJDC website, download and print the application form. The application form is only 1 page, and the best part about it is you only need to know your personal information and nothing else. Fill out your personal information on the bottom of the form. It is really important that you provide a current mailing address, because this is where your expungement order from HCJDC will be sent. Check the box or boxes to show whether you want non-convictions, convictions, or both expunged. Lastly, sign and date the bottom of the form. Once you've completed the 1-page application form, you'll either need to mail or drop off your application to HCJDC with a copy of your driver's license, just a copy, not your actual license, and you'll also need to submit payment in the form of cashier's check or money order. It's $35 for your first expungement. If you've had an expungement before, the fee is $50. Remember, you only submit 1 application and only pay 1 application fee, even if you're wanting multiple charges or convictions expunged. If you're applying to have a conviction expunged, you will need 1 additional document in addition to your driver's license and payment. You will also need to include a copy of what's called the court's order granting expungement. This is an order you would have gotten from the court when your case was over. If you don't have a copy of the court's order granting expungement for your particular conviction, you can contact the court and request a copy of that order. They may charge you a small fee for the copy. Remember, the court's order granting expungement is not an expungement. This document just lets HCJDC know that the court has okayed you getting an expungement for your particular conviction. You still have to apply to HCJDC to finalize and expunge your conviction record. When you submit your expungement application to HCJDC, they will review your entire record and expunge all non-convictions and convictions that qualify. Note, if you apply for an expungement, but you don't qualify, your application fee will be fully refunded by HCJDC, except for the $10, which is non-refundable. An expungement clears or removes non-convictions or convictions from criminal record databases, the databases that are used by law enforcement and used for background checks. Sealing your records removes it from court databases. So this is the second step after you've received your expungement. The online court database for criminal cases is called eCourt Kokua. This is a public database. That means anyone, employers, landlords, can input your name in the eCourt Kokua database and see what's there. Sealing your court records prevents the public from accessing these records. It does not remove it entirely, as your name may still appear in the court system, but it does prevent the public from being able to access your particular case. So to seal your court records, you'll need to find your case number, either by locating it through eCourt Kokua or contacting the court for help. You can find instructions on how to use eCourt Kokua on the Hawaii Court website, www.courts.state.hi.us, or through the Hawaii State Law Library. Remember, you can't seal your record until you've received your expungement order, so you have to complete the expungement process first. Once you have your expungement order, using eCourt Kokua, you'll want to purchase copies of your court records for the case or cases that you want expunged. You want to keep copies of this case information for your personal records, because once your court case is sealed, you won't be able to access that information anymore. If you're unable to access eCourt Kokua to download your case files, you may be able to request copies of your records from the court clerk, though copying fees may apply. Once you've saved all of your court documents, you'll need to draft a letter request to the court asking the court to seal your records. You will need to include with your letter a copy of the expungement order. For a sample letter request to seal your records, you can go to the Hawaii State Law Library website, which I've linked here, which has detailed instructions as well as a sample letter request that you can just copy. Mail the letter request to the court where your case was filed with a copy of your expungement order. Once the court has processed your request, you'll receive an order sealing your expunged case. Once you've received the order sealing your record from the court, you'll want to go back to eCourt Kokua to make sure your court records are sealed and not accessible. So in short, the first step in the process is to expunge your criminal record by completing and submitting an application to the Hawaii Criminal Justice Data Center. Once you get your order of expungement from HCJDC, then you submit that order with a letter to the court requesting your records to be sealed. Now, hopefully you understand a little bit about the process, the two-step process in expunging and sealing your records. So now I want to explain to you what types of things can be expunged. There are two types of expungements, one for arrest or non-convictions, and the other one that allows you to expunge a select few criminal convictions. The first type of expungement is when you have not been convicted of a crime, but you were just arrested. It is possible to be arrested and released without charges being filed. In other words, you're arrested, but you don't have a court case, and you don't have any future court dates. This sometimes occurs when the police need to conduct more investigation, or the prosecutor has not taken any action yet in your particular case. Now, remember, if you were arrested, but you've not been charged yet, meaning you don't have a court date yet, the prosecutor could still potentially charge you. So you need to look at the statute of limitations for your particular charge to know how long the prosecutor has to charge you with a certain crime. You cannot get an expungement until the statute of limitations timeframe has passed. Here is a very quick and simple guide to the statute of limitations for certain classes of crimes. Another word of caution. There are always exceptions in the law, and certain types of crimes may have time extensions or don't simply qualify for an expungement. So check HR 701-108 for more information, and also check the statute for your particular charge. In addition to your arrest records that you can expunge, there are other types of non-convictions that can be expunged. A non-conviction here means you were charged with a crime, your case went to court, but your case wasn't resolved in your favor. That means you won. Yay. But it still shows on your record. One example of a non-conviction is maybe when you were found not guilty by a judge or a jury. You might also have had your case dismissed by the prosecutor with prejudice. The with here is really important because when your case is dismissed with prejudice, it means the case is completely over. You cannot be prosecuted again in that particular case. If you receive a dismissal without prejudice, there's a possibility that the prosecutor could still bring charges again in the future. So you can't yet have that charge expunged. If you receive a dismissal without prejudice, you'll want to check again the statute of limitations for your charge to see how much more time the prosecutor has to bring charges. Lastly, your record may be expunged as a non-conviction if you received a deferral, meaning you successfully completed some requirements set by the court. Drug court is a common example, but there are many other types of charges where you may have received a deferral. And if you're not sure, just check the court record at eCourt Kokua or contact the court for more help. Just as with charges themselves, there are time limits on when you can apply for an expungement of a non-conviction. As mentioned before, your case has to be done, over with, final, before you can apply for an expungement. If your case is closed because of a deferral, you will typically need to wait 1 year before you can apply for an expungement, though some charges, like prostitution, may have a longer wait period. The last type of expungement is for convictions, meaning we're found guilty or pled guilty to a particular charge. Some charges may be eligible for expungement, even if you were convicted, especially if it was just your first offense. Common convictions that may be expunged include possession of marijuana less than 3 grams, first-time drug or property offenses, and some prostitution offenses. If you are not sure whether your conviction qualifies, you can contact the Hawaii Criminal Justice Data Center website for more information on convictions that can be expunged. Remember, as I mentioned before, you can always complete and submit the expungement application, and HCJDC will review your entire record and expunge all non-convictions and convictions that qualify for expungement. Note, if you apply for an expungement, though, and you don't qualify, your application fee will be refunded by HCJDC, except for $10, which is non-refundable. Visit these websites for more information on qualifying for an expungement and to download any necessary forms. If you don't qualify for an expungement, exercise your right to vote and select candidates who believe in reforming our criminal legal system and expanding expungements to give more people second chances. Find out more about voting with a criminal record at the ACLU website. Then don't forget to check your registration and register to vote today.
No one should be criminalized for survival or for their own exploitation. Yet every year, HPD arrests twice as many prostitution survivors as sex buyers. Thankfully, in 2019, the Hawaii State Commission on the Status of Women passed a historic law. It's the first and only law in the United States that allows relief from criminalization for sex workers and sex trafficking survivors alike, even if you can't prove that you were a victim of sex trafficking, which we knew wasn't realistic anyway. Act 176, or the Survivors Not Criminals Law, allows for you to file a motion to vacate a prostitution conviction if you haven't committed another crime within 3 years of the conviction. It also shortens the time when you can apply for expunging prostitution charges down to 3 years. What this means is that you can erase your prostitution-specific criminal record. Please watch Expungement 101 to learn more. We hope that this makes leaving prostitution easier and prevents discrimination and stigma as you apply for jobs. Mahalo.
My name is Mandy Fernandez. I'm the Policy Director with the American Civil Liberties Union of Hawaii. I'm here to talk about a new law in Hawaii relating to cannabis possession and how it impacts your ability to expunge your record if you already have a past conviction for cannabis. So according to State of Hawaii's annual crime reports, between the years of 2008 and 2017, nearly 8,000 adults were arrested in Hawaii for just simple possession of cannabis. The new law passed in 2019, Act 273, decriminalized the possession of small amounts of cannabis and allows for the expungement of your record if you were convicted of possessing an amount that would no longer be a crime today. This new law went into effect in January 2020. This law decriminalizes the possession of 3 grams or less of cannabis, which is a little under 1/8 of an ounce or just a handful of joints. Before this law, even if you had a really small amount, just even 1 joint, you could be guilty of promoting a detrimental drug in the 3rd degree, which under Hawaii law is a petty misdemeanor that carries a fine of up to $1,000. So now instead of a crime, possession of 3 grams or less is a civil violation punishable by a fine of $130. It's treated like a minor traffic violation. Still pretty hefty fine, and the amount you can have before it rises to a petty misdemeanor is pretty low. 8 grams is just not that much, especially when you compare this to how other states have decriminalized cannabis. So this bill decriminalized possession of small amounts, but it didn't legalize it. So it's no longer a crime, but it's still against the law. The difference between legalization and decriminalization is that legalization would have created a regulatory structure for the possession and distribution of cannabis. This merely removed criminal penalties from cases where you only have a very small amount for personal use. So obviously this law does not apply to medical cannabis that a patient has legally. The possession and distribution of medical cannabis is legal and regulated in Hawaii, and there are separate rules and regulations around that, so you should be aware of those if you are a medical cannabis patient. However, if you have a conviction on your record for the possession of 3 grams or less of cannabis, this new law might apply to you, and you might be able to get your record expunged. A few things to keep in mind. So this law only requires the court to expunge your past cannabis convictions if it's 3 grams or less, and if the facts and circumstances in the case didn't give rise to any other charge. So if it's the only charge that came out of that case. It's always a good idea to consult with an attorney to discuss the specifics of your case to see if this is an option for you. So to find out more exactly about how you go about expunging your record, please refer to the Expungement 101 portion of this webinar. Thank you so much.
Aloha, my name is Jen Jenkins. I'm a public policy advocate with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, OHA. I'm here to discuss a bill from OHA's 2020 legislative package that reduces the look-back period for employers to inquire about and consider criminal conviction records. As noted in OHA's report on the disparate treatment of Native Hawaiians in the criminal justice system, the inability of former pa'ahao to find stable employment and support their families after their release is one of the major collateral consequences of incarceration, which particularly burden the Native Hawaiian community. National research shows that employers may be far less inclined to hire individuals with even a misdemeanor criminal conviction record, particularly for individuals of color, and despite the length of time from their past illegal activity. While existing state laws generally prohibit employment discrimination based on arrest and court records, Hawaii statutes still allow employers to rescind job offers or make other employment decisions based on convictions up to 10 years old, as long as the conviction has a rational relationship to this job. This measure mitigates the impacts of the 10-year criminal background checks encouraged under state law by limiting the length of time that convictions may be used in employment decisions from a maximum time period of 7 years for felonies and 5 years for misdemeanors, subject to existing exceptions for certain occupations and agencies. These new limits will discourage most employers from using old and possibly irrelevant convictions in making employment decisions, shorten the unreasonably long 10-year background check period used by employers in evaluating job applicants, and ensure that those who have long past paid their debt to society will receive a more meaningful opportunity to support themselves and their family members and become contributing members of the community.
Aloha kako. My name is Carrie Ann Shirota, and I'm here to share a broader vision for reimagining public safety in Hawaii and tips for successful reentry. Reimagining public safety means creating a coordinated reentry system. Ideally, we should work on diverting youth and adults from our incarceration system. But if somebody is incarcerated, we need to provide them opportunities for rehabilitation while they're incarcerated and as they transition home into the community. Our goal as a community should be to create a coordinated reentry system. Based upon my experience as the former director of a reentry program on Maui and having loved ones who have been incarcerated and their transition home, it has become evident that it takes a village to create and promote successful reentry. So when we create this coordinated reentry system, we need to have governmental agencies working with nonprofit organizations, private sector, and the community, collaborating, partnering, offering support services to meet the needs of individuals as they transition home. Reentry planning needs to start on day one, not at the tail end of someone's sentence, but literally on day one of incarceration, creating the plan of what is needed for people to be successful while incarcerated and as they transition home, so that we have a continuum of care. A coordinated reentry system, in order for it to be successful, needs to be holistic. We need to recognize the inherent dignity of each individual and their capacity and their potential to change and live a transformed life. That is very important, the philosophy in which we serve people who have been incarcerated and as they transition home into the community. More compassion, more care, not more cages. So as we create this coordinated reentry system or program, what are some of the key factors, or what I'll call as ingredients to successful reentry? Having a designated case manager, whether you call them case manager, navigator, guide, coach, having someone that's going to be by your side, empowering you, pointing you to resources, giving you a pep talk when you need it, or even giving you some straight talk when you're going down the crooked path. But somebody who wants you to succeed, helping you to navigate life after incarceration will help you to succeed. And sometimes you may not have a program, but maybe you have someone in your life who's a champion for you that's going to be your guide. Second, providing identification in the form of state ID, birth certificate, social security card. That's critical to successful reentry. I'm also going to list other key ingredients in a laundry list fashion, I could literally spend a whole day on training about each of these components, but in the interest of time, I'm going to list them. Having housing, safe, stable, sober housing is critical to successful reentry. You can hear the alarm in the background. It's saying that that's a definite need. Number 4, having access to healthcare insurance and health access, equity. So having healthcare insurance, individuals through the assistance of Department of Human Services can help people while currently incarcerated up to 30 days before exiting jail or prison to apply for healthcare insurance. And that opens up access to doctors for physicals, for prescription medication, for substance abuse assessments, for mental health or other behavioral health needs. 5th, having employment opportunities, having employment vocational training. Number 6, education. Research has shown that the more education a person receives, and particularly college education, that is the best way to reduce the likelihood of ever returning to jail or prison. At our community colleges and university, there are programs that are set up to help people apply for college and to help you get free money to go to college. And you'll also see yourself in a different light and open yourself to new opportunities and new peer groups. Number 6 or 7, having assistance to financial assistance while you're transitioning back home. If you're not able to work at this time, you maybe have access to Social Security, disability, other financial assistance, and food. These are things that people need, sometimes often on a temporary basis until they're able to earn their own income. So don't be ashamed about accessing government resources. It's there to help you succeed. Family reunification, having support services that strengthen family bonds, that encourage those family bonds by either visitation while someone is incarcerated, as they transition into the community on work furlough, extended work furlough, and as they transition into the community. These events could be dinners, they could be spending time with your child, helping them do homework, or community service projects where the whole ohana comes together and contributes to our Habitat for Humanity build, helping to restore a lo'i, some other project. These things strengthen community and family bonds. Communication, communicating with probation, parole officers, your attorney, with your medical doctors, with a counselor. Communication is really, really important. And in this day and age, having a reentry tool like a cell phone is really critical to staying in touch and to meeting requirements that may be upon you if you're under legal supervision. Another area or key ingredient for successful reentry is civic engagement. You are a member of our beloved community. As such, you're entitled to certain rights. The right to vote. Please exercise that right by electing strong leaders in our community who believe in and will invest resources into alternatives to incarceration and to reentry programs that help people succeed. So please vote. Register to vote and vote. Another key ingredient to successful reentry is community service. I've mentioned this before. We are all members of our beloved community. We all have certain talents and gifts. And by giving back to the community when we feel like we're stable and secure in where we're at, it's a way to give back, to feel good about ourselves, and to show the community that people are capable of transformation and doing good. And last, I want to add another key ingredient. Sadly, many of the men and women in our carceral system are Native Hawaiian. Consequently, we found in our program of reentry in Maui that providing cultural programming and services, connection to kupuna, to kumu, with expertise in certain areas, farming, language, hula, really help people to transform their life, but to see themselves as connected to a larger community, to draw upon the strength of their ancestors, their resilience, their brilliance, and heal. And so I encourage that we provide these cultural opportunities and programs and connections to help people succeed. And I found that even for those who are not of Hawaiian ancestry, participating in these programs help them to heal and to feel a beloved member of our community as well. So I'd like to close with a quote from one of my heroes, Brian Stevenson, and he says, "Each one of us is more than the worst thing that we've ever done." Reimagining public safety requires all of us to invest in alternatives to incarceration, but also to support rehabilitation programs while a person is incarcerated, and reentry support, holistic support when they transition home. This is my hope and my prayer. I hope all of you will join me and others to advocate and champion reentry support services in our community. Remember, it takes a village. Mahalo.